Okay.
There you go.
We're good. Sorry. So not quite as smooth of a class as like when I do Zipforms basics, and that's just due to the fact that it's more tips and tricks. And I will try to pause or put some gaps in between some of the tips and tricks so that if you guys have questions, or maybe there's a way that you use some of the features that I'm going to speak about in a way that makes sense to you, and you think it might be helpful for others, I will pause and allow time for you guys to give some input or ask those questions. So you'll just need to unmute yourself when you want to contribute to the conversation. I'm going to go ahead and log into Zipforms. If you guys are following along, I know it's kind of hard depending on where you are looking at your Zoom to do both. So just know I am recording this as of right now. And so you can always come back to it. We'll post it on our website so that you can come back to it later. Just going to move some stuff around on my screen so I can see a little bit better what I'm up to. Okay. First thing I'm going to go over, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about templates. And I know I did that in the basics class, but I want to talk through a few more details about a template and how you can really use them to your advantage, and maybe some pieces that you haven't added into your templates that could be really helpful for you. So when I log into Zipforms, it takes me to this screen that says transactions. You'll see the green transactions at the top. So that's the tab that I'm on. Here are all my transactions. If I scroll down, you guys can all see my screen. Yeah, great.
Yes.
Okay. Right to the right of that, right to the right, just to the right of that, you'll see templates. So I'm going to click on templates. It will turn green. And then if I had created any of my own personal templates in the past, they would appear here. But let's talk through a few different kinds of templates that you could create if you're using Zipforms that can make your life a lot simpler. We can be very general or generic and do a buyer's packet and a seller's packet. You could get way more granular than that, and you could say, okay, I want a cash buyer's packet. I want a conventional buyer's packet. I want an FHA buyer's packet and a VA buyer's packet. Maybe you want a listing packet and a vacant listing packet. Maybe you work with an investor. Please create a template for your investor, because you're going to be typing that person's information over and over, and you may as well type it once and then just use that template every time you work with that investor. So I'm going to create a template, and I'm going to do that. It looks just like when you create a transaction, only I'm on the templates tab, and I'm going to click new. And then you can see it gives me the options of new listing, new purchase. Let's go ahead and do, let's say I have a vacant listing. I want to do a vacant listing packet. I list a lot of vacant homes. So I'm going to click new listing, and then I'm going to name it. I'm giving it a name so I'll remember, so I can go use that one when I show you where it's at. But you would list it whatever makes sense to you. I do think it's easy sometimes if you put your name in front of it, because when you go to the list of all the templates, you will see the ones created by the company as well. And if my templates have my name in front of it, they pop out to me sooner. So I often put my name in front of it. You definitely don't have to, but just a little trick for when you're pulling up that whole list that makes it stand out a little bit easier. So Stacy's vacant listing packet, Zipforms Advanced Class is what I'm calling this one. I'm going to select residential. It says scope over here, personal. You're always going to leave it on personal. This is your template. I don't even know. You can't even select the others. So it'll default to personal. Now, auto apply. I do not want to auto apply this template. That means if I were to go to the transactions tab and click on new transaction listing, it would automatically apply this template. Well, I want to choose when I'm using my vacant listing packet. I never want my templates to auto apply. I want to pick them. Okay, so I'm not going to auto apply, but below that it says select a template. You're like, I thought we were creating a template. We are, but you can take an existing template, for instance, the company created listing packet, and then modify it to be your template. That is just like you walking into your office and grabbing that yellow folder and then tossing out half the documents like some of us do, and then filling in your information and putting it in your drawer for a later date, right? So that's what I'm gonna do when I create this template. So underneath select template, I'll click on my templates, and then I'm going to find that global listing packet, Nebraska. Now, don't be fooled by the 2019. We just need to update that date. It's the current one. Once I've selected that, I'm going to click Save at the bottom. And it's going to open up that template that I'm creating. So you'll see in this gray bar in the top left corner, it says Stacy's vacant listing packet. That's what I named this template. So I know I'm in that template right now. So anything that I modify in here will affect that template specifically. If I scroll down, I see all my documents. Some of you may view it a little bit differently. Maybe yours looks like this, right? Some of yours look like that. I'm just clicking on this button in the top right corner that has the lines to change it to list view. If you prefer to see a list and see more at a time. If you like to see the pictures of the documents, you can click the grid view and it'll take you back to these icons. Now, the first thing I do when I create a template is I'm going to click the delete button. This is like you opening up that yellow folder and tossing out what you don't want. So let's click delete. And then I'm gonna walk through and delete the forms that I don't need. So in this case, I'm not on a team, so I'm gonna get rid of anything that is team related. So agency, seller, Nebraska team. I don't need that one. So when I click delete, it's gonna allow me to select multiple documents to delete the ones that I don't want. Now this is maybe Trudy can answer this, or maybe Nikki knows. When I'm doing a vacant, do I need a seller property condition disclosure? You do still? Okay. It's only if it's not inhabited by the people, right? No, she's saying no. Okay. So I'm just gonna keep going down and I'm gonna delete the ones that I don't want. I want all of these so far, except I don't want transaction notes. I don't use that one. Everything else I'm gonna keep. So I'm gonna go back up to the top, and here I'm gonna click the delete button in the top right corner. Yes. Now those two documents are deleted. So the first thing I did was decide which documents are a part of this template. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go into the cover sheet. I'm gonna single click to get into the cover sheet. And I'm gonna add information in here that never changes. So for instance, I am the listing agent. That's never gonna change when I list a vacant property. So I can fill out this whole top box. I'm gonna do a little bit. Not gonna do all of it, but just so that you can see what that would look like. MLS ID, and then my name, I never change if I'm listing it. I'm the agent. My MLS ID, this is not mine, obviously. I'm just throwing in a bunch of 5s. It's my favorite number, at least it's not a 6. And then I'm gonna keep scrolling down the transaction cover sheet to see if there's anything else that I fill out every time that I do a listing transaction. Now the property listing information will change with each transaction, so I'm not gonna fill out anything here, but seller information, this will not be the same every time either, but what will be? That BC fee, right? So I'm gonna click yes, and then when I click in the amount box, it will automatically pre-fill it with that $3.95, which will assure that I won't miss it when I go to do my transaction. It's gonna fill in. That is able to be modified. I know some people change that, so you can change it here. But everything else is going to be different based on the transaction. So I've done all I can in my cover sheet. I'm going to click back, and remember, Zipforms has an auto save feature, so there's got that big beautiful saved, and I didn't have to click save, which is really nice. But now I can go into any other document that might require the same information over and over and fill it out here. For instance, is it the agency on the second page right here? Let's put in our broker information. So perhaps Jill Anderson is your broker. You can put her name and her number, whatever it might be there. And so then that will pull in every time and you don't have to type it into each individual transaction. So I added that on that second page. I'm going to click back. Again, it's going to save that save feature. And then I'm going to keep looking down these documents to see, is there anything else that doesn't change? I think I've got them all so far. Now we can go one more step with this template, and right to the left of documents in the top gray bar is parties. So I'm going to click on parties. You can see it pulled me in as the listing broker or agent because I put myself in the cover sheet. But something that never changes when I do a listing is the fact that I need to turn in my paperwork to my admin, right? So if I scroll down on the left-hand side of all these different party options, you know, buyer 1, buyer 2, seller 1, 2, 3, 4, if I go to the bottom, you're going to see the option for add other. So I'm going to click that one. I'm going to name the role. So I'm going to just call it admin. Then I can give it a name. So maybe it's 148 Dodge admin. And then I can add their email address. I don't know that this is it, so don't write this down if you are a 148 agent. I don't know that that's the correct one, but I know they each have a group email, or maybe you specifically send to one of them, add them here. And then I'm going to click save on the bottom. So now 148 Dodge admin is going to pull into every transaction that I use this template on. After that, I want to talk through, next to documents on the right-hand side, it says checklist. What is checklist? This is your ability to create tasks that are associated with your transaction. So you can create a new checklist within your template, and then every time you use this template, it will apply that checklist to those individual transactions. For instance, if I click new, I'm going to name it vacant listing checklist. Save. Got to move some stuff around on my screen so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, so now I have a new checklist created, and I can create a new category. So for instance, pre-listing, and I am not an agent, you guys know this, so bear with me. You will know better the different kinds of categories that you can create. So I'm creating a portion of this vacant listing checklist that's called pre-listing, and in here I'm going to create tasks for myself, which could be listing presentation, or maybe it's schedule photos, get all paperwork to your admin. So I'm just going to show you a view of how you could do that. You can select a due date. You can put none. You can make it fixed or relative. If I do it relative, this is one I really like to use. Relative in a template means it's going to go off of whichever date you choose. So maybe I want to have my photos done 5 days before the listing date. Okay. So whenever I use this template, each of those transactions will have a different list date, but it will always give me this task 5 days before that list date. I can select a responsible party. I'm going to select myself for this one. If I want to be notified, you as the agent will always be notified. So you don't have to mark that if you're selecting yourself. Trudy's got a question.
I have two questions.
Okay.
I noticed a color-coded thing.
Yep.
What's that? And where it says responsible party.
Yeah.
How do you get somebody else in the drop down?
So because I'm in a template right now, it's only going to show me the parties that I've added of list agent and admin. But when I'm in an individual transaction, I can modify the tasks that I've created in the template and assign it to maybe the seller, or maybe it's the appraisal company, termite company, whoever. Yeah,
Okay.
title person, whoever it might be. But because I'm in the template, I'm not going to assign out, and they won't appear in that drop down. But I can modify this in individual transactions. The color coding comes into play. Oh, I didn't save that. I should have. When you're creating the categories, so I will create a pre-listing category and gave it the color green. And then if I created a new category, I can choose a different color. And you'll see I can put all the tasks underneath that color that relate to post listing, or, you know, whatever you want to call it. And then you can create one like post offer, you know, like after offer, here are my tasks. I'm going to real quick create that task because I didn't click save. And anybody that has a question, please feel free. While I'm typing this, I can talk at the same time, or Nikki can jump in and help me. Got it. My Zoom bars are all in my way, so I got to keep moving these around. Sorry. All right, there's my save. So now you can see I have this task underneath my category pre-listing. So schedule listing photos 5 days before my listing date is what I chose for that one. Now I could create a task underneath the post listing. I could create multiple tasks under each category, and I can create as many categories as I prefer. So maybe post listing, I will share listing on Facebook, or whatever it might be that you want to do. I never choose a fixed date when you're in a template creating a task, because they're all going to have different dates. So I would often choose either none or relative, because I want this one to be relative. So 1 day after list date. Who's responsible? I am. So I can move this bar again so I can click save. And now you see I have a pre-listing task and a post-listing task, and I could really build this out. You guys know what your checklists look like when you do a listing, all the different tasks that you go through when you are bringing on a property and listing a property. Trudy's got a question.
I'm sorry.
Nope, you're good.
Okay, so 2 things again. One is there a notification element of this? So yes.
Yes.
And the second is, if I've spent the time to create this checklist, can I clone it to put it in another template?
In another template, I believe they all appear under checklists here. I will have to look at that one.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure if you create multiple categories, those will pull over in drop downs as options, but I'm not sure about like a full blown out checklist. I'll look into that.
Okay, thanks.
You as the agent, it's automatically set for you to get notification of these tasks via email. You also, if you log into Zipforms, you'll get a little icon in the top that has like a number that says you have tasks due. And then within each task, like I'll open listing photos, underneath responsible party, it has notify them when it's due, and I can turn that on and off. Great. Okay, so that's checklists. Any questions on that? No? Okay, one other thing I want to do in my template before I call it complete is I'm going to go back to the documents section. Should have done this when I was here earlier, apologize. I like to organize. So here I have all of my blank documents that I will be filling. I like to call the fillable Zipforms documents my working documents. But right now they're in what's called one big folder, and you'll see on the left-hand side it says folders. So I'm going to create subfolders within this main folder for my documents. And I can do that by clicking Add Folder underneath the R you see here. It's going to let me create a folder. So think about the different categories of documents that you have within one single transaction. For instance, you will have, brain fart, hang on, completed listing documents or fully executed listing packet, whatever you might want to call it. And you'll see when I created it, it now appears underneath the main folder on the left-hand side. Can you all see that? Okay, what other ones will I have that I want in here? I'm gonna click add folder. I'm just creating organization for the future right now. So maybe I'm gonna have purchase offer, buyer side completed. So you get an offer from an agent on your listing and you have the documents that are just completed by the buyer, right? Maybe I want a completely separate folder for that. What's another one? Fully executed contract. So now I have these, what I call subfolders on the left-hand side, and how do I get documents into them, right? So up next to add folder, there's a move button and it's got a little folder icon above it. So when I click move, it's gonna allow me to select the documents that I want to move. So let's pretend that this listing agreement is a completed one, okay? So, or let's say a lot of these are. These are 3 completed listings and I want to move them to the listing folder. So I select the documents by checking the box in the top right corners, and then in the top right it says move. Now it's going to pull up those subfolders that I had created. So I can say completed listing documents, move here. Okay, so now those documents live in this completed listing folder. So if I click completed listing, there they live. So it's a subfolder within that main folder. To get back to all the documents, I can click on this top big folder that's a little bit further to the left. If I click folders, it's going to take me back to where everything is. So there's some really easy ways to create some organization within your main folder. What kind of questions do you have on creating the template? I'm going to show you how to use the template here in a minute. But before I do that, what kind of questions about filling out documents to the most that you can in a template do you have? Trudy's already unmuted. Bring it on.
Well, so what I'm thinking is with these subfolders, that helps with like sending things to the admins. You can, if you've got all the completed documents that are in a listing, you don't have to click all the individual ones. Can you send that whole subfolder to the admins?
So I believe you would still come into the folder,
yeah,
and click the send button, and then you'll be able to select the documents that you want. You're still going to select them, but you're not sending them individually.
Okay.
You'll still have to select them individually.
Okay.
Any other questions? I can't see everybody, so I'll pause for a minute just in case.
So here's one of the things that happens to me, and I usually look at the list view.
Sure.
But when I've got a bunch of documents in here now, sometimes towards the bottom, there are things that came in that were all signed at the same time. And when I do, like, I want to email them now to the admins, not all of what I want to send to them is there. In general, some of them are there and some of them are in other places in the list. And when I go to open up, I think it's operator error. When I go to open up that folder at the bottom with several documents in it, then it won't give me the option to go back and choose other things at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yes, I know what you're saying there. So in Trudy's scenario, my thought is that you're sending things through DocuSign for signatures. When they come back from DocuSign, they're in individual folders of the different DocuSign sessions that you've sent.
Right.
And you want to send maybe a document from each of those sessions.
Right.
I believe there's a way to do, I feel like I've done it, but I need to actually mimic it to show you. So
I was thinking if I put all of those, the ones I want in these, if I can put those in
one
these
folder.
folders, right?
Yeah, so you're getting ahead of me. So I'm going to show you when you go to do the e-sign feature that you can select one of these pre-created folders for those items to all drop into one folder. And then they would all be in that one folder for you.
Okay. So
Okay.
somebody else ask a question. I'm going to be quiet.
Oh, Trudy, no one. I've got no one? Okay. Okay, now I'm going to show you how do you use this template. Okay, let's say this vacant listing packet template is ready to go. I'm going to click this back button on the left side, and remember we have that awesome save feature. Oops, I accidentally clicked new. So now you can see Stacy's vacant listing packet is right here under my templates tab. So in order to use it, I'm going to go to my transactions tab to the left. So I'm going to click on transactions. Give it a minute to think here. Okay, so now let's pretend we logged out, we logged back in, and we have a new vacant listing that I want to use that template. I am going to click new under transactions. I'm going to select listing. Got to move my Zoom bars again, sorry. Hang tight. Okay, now I'm going to name that transaction. So this is my Stacy's new vacant listing. Now you would probably name it 1234 Main Street or Nikki Kershaw 1234 Main Street. You might want to put your client's name in there. Whatever naming convention you prefer, you would put in this section. And then I'm going to go down and select residential. And then under select template, this is where I'm going to click on the drop down and I'm going to find Stacy's vacant listing packet. See that right there? This is the one I created and I called it Zipforms Advanced Class. So I'm going to click Stacy's vacant listing packet. I'm going to move another bar here out of my way. Goodness sakes. So I can click save. Now when you click save on that section of the transaction, it's going to now open up that transaction. Okay, I'm in that transaction. It takes you to the summary screen, but I'm going to go ahead and jump over to parties so you can see the two people I had in that template now pulled in automatically. If I go to documents, the documents that I had selected to be a part of that, of that template now appear, and you'll see if I clicked on folders, what do I have here? Completed listing, purchase offer, fully executed contract. So I have all those subfolders that I had created. So that's how you use your templates. So do all the different types of templates, the buyer's packets, the listing packets, the investors packets, and fill them. You got a little time right now. We're not all going to meet people for a glass of wine in the evening. So you can just sit and work on your Zipforms templates, right? I know that's what Nikki's doing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Lots of wine.
What's that?
Lots of wine.
Lots of wine.
Lots of wine.
So, but now it's just wine at home by ourselves.
Yeah.
Some of us. Okay. So a couple more things I want to talk through with using this feature. I am going to now do some of the things that Trudy was asking. So I'm going to talk through DocuSign folders. In order to show you some of the DocuSign folder features, that DocuSign folder features, how about that? I have to fill out my listing a little bit more. So I'm going to open up my cover sheet by doing a single click. And I am going to go to my seller information and add some sellers. And their email addresses. Remember, we've got to have email addresses in order to email, to do that e-signature feature. Okay, so I'm going to click back. It's going to save their names and their email addresses. And now I can show you how to use the e-sign feature with some pre-made folders. Okay, in the top left corner where it says e-sign, we're going to pretend like my listing and everything is ready to go, right? We're going to send it out for signatures. I'm going to click e-sign. And then remember, it talks us through the whole process in that bar at the top. It says click new, so I'm going to do it. That's what it says. And then it says, okay, what documents do you want to send for signatures? So here's where I'm going to select the documents. I remember, I think I put some completed ones in here, which are not completed, but we'll just grab them from here. Maybe I'll just grab those two for right now. And then click close. So I've selected my forms, but before I click next to move on to the next portion of this feature, this is what you want to look for, Trudy. Return folder. Choose a folder for the return signed documents to go into automatically. So when I click that, it's going to pull up the folders that exist in my current file. So I have completed listing documents. I can select that folder and then click done. And you'll see it now appears under DocuSign completed listing documents. Another thing that's going to help that whole process of finding the documents you sent out for signatures easier is to also name those signature packets. So instead of being signature packet 1, I'm going to call it original listing packet, or whatever makes sense to you. Name that what's going out for this section of DocuSign so you can easily locate it. Okay, that's step 1. That folder piece is huge. When I click next, it's going to pull up my recipients. So I'm going to select who I want to send it to. Just going to send it to my sellers, Sam and Stacy Seller. Click close. You can see it automatically assigns a signing order. In this case, I have the same email address, so I'm going to leave that signing order, but maybe I want Stacy first. I will just click on this move button and drag them, or I can change the numbers in the box. It does the same thing. And then I'm going to click next. And I just realized I'm in Chrome and I was having issues, but maybe we're going to cross our fingers and it'll work.
It's gonna be fine.
If you ever are in Chrome and you're using the integration of Zipforms into DocuSign and you get that little frowny face when it gets to this part, it's sad. It's a real frown face and it says DocuSign isn't working. All you have to do is use a different browser. For instance, if you have Firefox or Edge, don't ever use Explorer for anything ever, ever, ever. Firefox, Safari, Edge, they all work perfectly. They've been working on this. I actually think this gives me hope that it's fixed because I was one of the few people that had issues. It didn't affect everybody. So if you ever run into that issue, just switch your browser.
Stacy, I have issues with that all the time, and Dave told me he had it fixed this morning.
Oh,
and I went to do it before this, and he didn't have it fixed. But that sounds like a really easy fix.
it's such an easy fix. I was running into the issue over and over and over. So switching your browser should correct it. Let me know if it doesn't.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Okay, so now I have my sellers in here. I've got the pre-tagged feature going on, so I don't have to add my tags, which is awesome. So all I really have to do is check it, except for when you get to the agency, you know, you have to select this or whichever one you're choosing. So I added that one. These don't automatically fill because it could be different per transaction. So I'm gonna leave that. Everything else looks good. Now it's ready to go out for signatures. So I'm gonna click send. It's gonna tell me, thank you for using DocuSign. Click close to return. Give me just a second here. I'm gonna click back to get back into my transaction. And then I'm gonna move those documents that I had put in this completed folder. Remember I put these in here and they are not actually completed listing documents. So I'm gonna move them out of here just so you can see the full process. Move, I just want them to go. Oh, it didn't give me the full one. I'm just gonna stick them there for right now. Just pretend like you didn't see that. Okay. All right, so here I am, and you guys are gonna just do some Jeopardy music for a quick minute while I go and I sign these documents so that you can see the return folder.
Dwayne has a question. Did you see that pop up on chat?
I did not. You wanna read it?
I'd be happy to. Let me open that back up. Dwayne asks, can you use the same email for both buyers, sellers?
Yes, you can, as long as you set a signing order. So if you have it go to both parties at the same time, it can really cause a glitch. As long as you do a signing order of 1, 2, which means like you'd send it to me before Nikki gets it, then it works seamlessly. Well, I didn't get those emails yet, so maybe I'll go on to something else and I'll sign these on my phone in just a minute. So we'll head back to my screen share. You guys are probably still there. I just jumped off. Can you guys still see my transaction?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So I will watch for those emails to come across and sign them here in a second, but I am going to talk about a couple integrations with Zipforms, which is the MLS Connect feature, and then RPR. I hope you guys use RPR. It's a really great resource. I don't do a ton of training on it. I don't use it like a lot of agents do, but there's a really cool integration with Zipforms in RPR. So I'm going to switch screens here, and I am going to pull up RPR. Does this look familiar? Can you guys see my RPR screen?
Yes.
Okay. So what I can do with RPR is, for instance, I am going to list a property, but it's not live yet, so I can't use the MLS Connect feature. So I can log into RPR, look up a property. So I just went to the search bar and typed in a property. And then if you'll see, when I scroll partway down the screen, it says Zipforms transactions. Do you guys see this? What's great is that your Zipforms and your RPR account are connected because you have to register your NRDS number with both programs. So that's, some of you call it your NERDS number, but it's your NRDS number. They're both logged into both accounts, so they automatically sync without you having to do anything. So I can look up a property that I'm going to list. So I'm telling my parents we're going to sell their house, and I look up their property here, and I scroll down, and I want to create a listing or a Zipforms transaction straight from RPR. I can do that just by clicking this Zipforms transaction button. So I clicked it, it pulls up my Zipforms account, and it says start a new Zipforms transaction. So then I'm going to choose the transaction type, whether it's a listing or it's a purchase or a lease. It's a listing. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to sign documents while we're waiting on that.
Quick question again from Dwayne. He asks also, what is the reason that sometimes a packet comes back in one big packet versus individual forms?
Into your Zipforms file, or are you using DocuSign independently? I'll answer both.
Okay.
If you are using Zipforms, they typically come back individually. I've never experienced them coming back all as one. DocuSign will modify how they come back based off of the size of the packet. If they're big, it will split them. Oftentimes they send it back just as one single.
Okay, thanks.
And if that didn't answer the question, or you've experienced different than that, let me know.
Absolutely. And to anyone else out there who has questions and you don't want to interrupt, feel free to put them in the chat and I will gladly interrupt.
And I'll take a breath, maybe a drink. Okay, I'm going to finish being one of my signers real quick before I click on this one. Okay, it says you have successfully created this transaction in Zipforms. So then I can close it and continue on my way in RPR, or I can click go to Zipform. It's pulling up my Zipforms account. It's going into my transactions, and it should take me right into that new transaction that I created using RPR. Yes, here it is. You see, if I scroll down a little bit at the top here, here's that file. It created the file name with the property address. And if I scroll down the summary a little bit, you'll see here is all the property information. I did not have to go type all of that in. It pulled in automatically from public record, which is what RPR uses for their data. Any questions on that? No? Nothing.
I don't see anything in chat right now.
Okay.
Stacy,
Yes.
don't you have to confirm the home facts? Because RPR does not always have the most current information on the home.
Sure. It would be smart. Yes.
Okay.
It's a good thing to do. A lot of times it's current. It really just depends. But I would definitely look over it and make sure it looks current before you pull it over. Yeah, I think I got that.
Thank you.
Yep. One other thing, if you create a transaction from RPR the way I just did, if I click over to the Documents tab in that file that I just created, you'll see I've only got these documents in here. It didn't apply a template, so I'm going to have to do that after the fact. So my transaction was created, but it didn't give me the option to add that template when I created the transaction. So now that I'm in here, I can always apply a template after the fact. So if you look up at the top near documents, I've got apply template. So I can come in here and I can say, I need to apply Stacy's listing packet. So there's my listing packet, click apply. It's gonna think for a second and then it pulls in all the documents. Just like if I had chosen it when I created the transaction in Zipforms, it'll pull in the documents there. So I just did that after the file was already created, once I was in the Documents tab. Apply template. Any questions on that, the RPR integration? No? Okay, I'm gonna show you the MLS Connect integration. Nikki, can you quick grab me an MLS number? I forgot to grab one ahead of time.
Yep, give me just a minute.
Okay. Maybe while she does that, I'm gonna go back to my transactions. Do you remember that DocuSign that I sent out through my Stacy's New Vacant listing? And I said, please return those documents to the folder completed listing. I finished them, I signed them. So if I go to the documents in this file, I should be able to click on this completed listing and here they are. So then even though this is one DocuSign event or packet, Trudy specifically, I'm talking to you, if I go to create another e-signature packet and I select this same folder for those documents to return into, they will all be here in one list. Make it easier? Great. Okay.
I'm ready.
Okay, I'm gonna show you now the MLS Connect feature. I am gonna act like I have a brand new buyer. I log into Zipforms and I'm on the Transactions tab. I'm gonna click New, just like when I created another transaction, and this one's a purchase. I'm gonna name it. I'm only naming it that so I can easily find it. And then here is where I am going to select the MLS Connect feature. So before I've even created the transaction, I'm gonna click there, and then it asks for an MLS listing ID. I'm ready for you.
22 00 5946.
So I have a buyer, and this is the MLS that we want to write a contract on. I'm gonna check this box that says include the property photo, just because that helps me to be able to remember. I think it makes your files a little bit prettier too. So once I put in the MLS ID and click this checkbox, I'm gonna click find. Ooh.
Sorry about it.
22005946.
2200 5946. Let's try this one. 2200 1111.
Should work.
It's going to.
What's that?
It's going to work.
All right. There it did.
Perfect.
I wonder what was up with that other one. So they all should work. But once I've clicked find, it pulls in the information from the MLS and it allows me then to verify that yes, this is the property I want to write the offer on. And then I can select use listing by clicking the checkbox at the bottom. So I named it, I pulled in the information through the MLS, and then I'm going to select residential. And then I'm always going to apply my template. Hopefully you've taken the time to build out a buyer's packet of some sort. So I'm going to choose Stacy's purchase packet. Or if you haven't built out your own templates, you can always come down and find the company packets. For instance, global purchase packet Nebraska, that's the same as pulling that blue folder from the wall. Same thing with the Iowa one, but I'm going to go use one that I've already created, the purchase packet, Stacy's purchase packet. And then I'm going to click save. Got to move these bars. Goodness sakes. And when I click save, it will open up that transaction. And then you can see all of that property information that was in the MLS pulls in automatically. If I click over to parties in this transaction, you'll see it also added the listing agent automatically and their office information. I'm going to go to my documents. If I click on my, now I have some folders built into that template that I applied Stacy's purchase packet, and I have folders built into that. So I had to go to my working or editable documents to find all my documents for filling. But if I open up that cover sheet, it has all this information pre-filled that I do not have to pull in. Now, a word to the wise is to check the legal description. We sometimes make typos. Agents pull it off of, maybe it's a website that's not super reliable, or we typed it wrong. You just want to make sure you get that correct. So that's one to verify as well, Julie. So if you're doing that, make sure you verify those as well. Any questions on using the MLS Connect feature? No? Nothing? Okay. I'm going to talk to you a little bit. I'm going to click back to get out of this screen. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this tab in the very middle next to templates called Doc Inbox. I think it makes a lot more sense if you split those two words up and not say Doc Inbox and say Doc Inbox, which was my problem with it to begin with. So Doc Inbox is it's like a mailbox within your Zipforms account. What you can do with this is, let's say you get an email from an outside agent with a offer on your listing. Instead of saving that offer to your computer and then pulling it into Zipforms with the Add Doc feature, you can just forward that email with the attachment to your Doc inbox, or your Zipforms email inbox is what I'm calling this. But what you'll see is that the whole email does not come into the Doc inbox, just the attachment does. So if I have an email and it has a purchase agreement attached to it and I forward it to this email address, it comes in just like this purchase agreement here. Now, how can you use it? A couple easy things to do, a couple setups. Email to Doc inbox. So if you go to Doc inbox and you click email to Doc inbox, it's going to give you a couple options. You can compose an email. You can click save as contact and it will create a contact in your Outlook or whatever program that you're using. Easiest for me is I like to right click on the actual email address right here. Right click on it and copy the email address. And then I go into my contacts in my email and just create a new contact with that email address, and I name it Zipforms. Really simple. So then when I get an email from an outside source that has an attachment that I want put into my Zipforms, all I have to do is create an email, and in the to field, I will just choose Zipforms, which will pull in that email address. I said a lot of words there. Did that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So once I've done that, this is how it comes in. So if I had sent multiple attachments or multiple emails that had attachments to this email address, they would all land right here. So they don't go into a specific transaction. They come into one inbox for all of those documents. So now what I get to do is I get to move them to the appropriate transaction. So you'll see in here, you've got this move to transaction button. So I'm going to click move to transaction. It's going to allow me to select which document I want to move. In this case, I'm just moving the one. And then I'm going to click next in the top right corner. Once I've selected next, it's going to pull up all of my transactions, and it says, which transaction does this go in? And I can just simply click on the transaction that I want that document to go into. And it says successfully move document to transaction. So I didn't have to save it to my desktop, go into the transaction, click add doc, search my computer for the document, and then add. All I had to do is forward that email to this doc inbox and then move it to the correct transaction. Do you have any questions on that? Nothing? Good? Okay. Couple other things. I've got just a few more things I'm going to go over. I am going to go to the transactions tab. I'm going to click there. And I'm going to show you a couple transaction tools. Right here, I'm not going to go into a transaction where it says transaction tools and you see that wrench. I'm going to click on that. And I want to talk to you a little bit about this clause manager. So when I say clause, what comes to mind? To me, it says that the verbiage that I type over and over and over into my documents. Maybe it is the seller paid costs. So maybe you're often typing seller to pay up to 3% of buyer's closing costs, not to exclude, yada, 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 right? You can create clauses like that in a bank where you can then just with 2 clicks add them to your contracts. So I clicked clause manager, and then you're always going to come to the far right where it says personal clauses. Just like we created our templates under personal, you're going to do personal clauses for your own library of clauses. Something cool, the company is working on some company approved clauses that will be available to you, and they will live under this global clauses. But we're going to work on those and kind of build out a library for you all. I know oftentimes agents are, maybe you're working on a 1031 exchange or some odd thing that requires very specific wording. The managers are working together to create some of those clauses for you guys so that you don't have to ask every time. But under personal clauses, you all can add your own. So in order to do that, I'm going to click new clause. Then it's going to ask for a category. If you've never created a clause in the past, you're going to just type the category name that you'd like it to be. For instance, purchase agreement. So then this would be clauses that you would put in a purchase agreement, or maybe listing agreement. Maybe you have clauses that you always use on inspection resolutions or inspection addendums. Any document that you use the same verbiage over and over again. If you've created the categories in the past, you'll just click on the drop down and they will live here like this. So you can say, okay, this clause I'm going to create, I want it to be in the purchase agreement category. Then I'm going to give it a title. Maybe this one is, I'm going to call it 3% of closing costs. And then I get to type that verbiage that you guys write over and over and over. Seller to pay 3% Or, you know, you can leave a blank for whatever amount it is, not to exceed whatever amount, and not to exclude prepaid, taxes, all of that stuff. I'm just doing it very bare minimum here, but you can type that whole clause out and then click save. You'll see it now exists right here in my personal clauses. And again, if you have time now and you can build this out, it'll make your life easier. So now, excuse me, I'm going to show you how to use these. So I'm going to close this box and I'm going to go into, let's say I'm going to go into this new buyer transaction that I created. I'm going to go to my documents. Then I'm going to go, remember this one I have folders, so I'm going to go into my editable docs to find my purchase agreement. There it is. And then let's say I'm filling this out, filling it out, and I get to right here. I am going to click, when I click on this box, you're going to see this little grayed out pencil. You guys see that pencil? That means edit. And then I've got options. I could change the font size. I could make it all caps. But if I click on this little scroll of paper, it's going to take me to my clauses. I can select the category. Oh, I got to click personal. Sorry. I can select the category. Then I can select whichever clause I want. If I'm doing 4% costs or 3% of costs, there's the one I created. And then just click insert and then move on with creating the rest of my purchase agreement. Any questions on clauses?
I have a quick comment.
Sure.
You can type all of that in and have it in your already in your template, correct? And then
Yes,
as you put a new template in, just delete what you're not using and then
absolutely.
keep forward.
Absolutely.
The way I've done it.
Yep. So if you like this one, if you notice, I deleted what I had in my template, which was property to appraise at or below purchase price, or yeah, at or above purchase price. If you have if you use the same thing every time, you can definitely put that in your template and it'll pull in, and then you can just modify it in each individual transaction.
Okay.
Yep,
Thank you.
that's another way to do it. Any other comments or questions? No? Okay. Last thing I'm going to show
I'm sorry,
you.
I have a quick one.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No.
You were talking about you go to your email and create a new contact.
Yeah.
This might sound dumb, but I guess I'm not sure what you meant by that.
Sure. It all depends on what email that you're using. How do you get your email, Vicki? Do you use Outlook on your computer, or do you go to email.mpdodge.com for your?
I use Outlook on my computer.
Okay, so I am going to see if I can switch what I'm sharing and show you what I mean by that. New share. Let's check out what's going on in my email.
I spent a huge amount of time saving them to my own drive, coming back in and then adding the doc in Outlook. I had no idea I could just send the email over and it would pull off the attachments.
Yes. Does this look, can you guys see my email?
Mm-hmm.
It looks like something from Cindy Williams. Okay, at the very bottom, and mine is a Mac, Vicki, so it might look a little bit different than yours, but you're gonna have a similar menu as to this. You see at the bottom, I've got mail, calendar, and then I have people.
Okay, yes, I do.
If I go to people, at the top, it's going to allow me to create a new contact.
Okay, that's simple enough.
Yep, so then I can just come in here and I can add the information, first name, last name, but I would just call this Zipforms. And then I would go to the email and I would paste that email right in that box and then click save and close. And then I already have this saved. So once you've created it, I'm gonna go back to my mail on the bottom left and create a new email. Let's say I'm forwarding an email that has an attachment.
Yeah.
I've named it Zipform. So you see strevian820@docs.ziplogics. I just named it Zipform. So then when I do this and I click send, if this had an attachment, that attachment will drop right in that doc inbox.
And it goes to the exact same transaction and you don't have to worry about it not finding the right transaction.
No, it goes to the main inbox. You do have to assign
I'm
it.
sorry. And then you have to go out there and you have to assign it.
Yes.
Okay, okay. It's still easier. Thank you.
I think so too. I think not saving it to your computer and then pulling it in, and yeah, I think it's easier also.
I think so too. Thank you.
Yep. All right, I'm going to pop back where I was if I can find it. Just a second. You guys see Zipforms again?
Yes.
Okay. Last thing I want to show you, I'm going to click back to get out of this document, and then I'm going to click back to list to get out of that transaction. I want to show you some filters. So as you can see, a lot of agents don't close out their transactions, and this whole front page will be loaded full of all these different transactions. Mine, I cannot get it to move. Scroll on here for this second. Hang on. There we go. So I have all these transactions, right? Maybe this is how you like it. This is overwhelming. If these were real, this would be overwhelming to me, and I would wish that just my active transactions were showing. Now you'll see they all have different statuses. Some are closed, some are active. What you can do is under this filter, you can select what you'd like to view. So in my case, I just want to see my active transactions and click apply. It's going to remove anything that has a different status. Now, good for you if you have this many transactions. I've done a bad job of cleaning up my transactions. But the one other thing I want to show you is how do you change this status from active to closed? I can click inside of the transaction and on the summary screen, it will give me this option of close, or I can select from the drop down of active to pending, close, prospect, fell through. But I can close it. It's going to require me to put a closing date. That way it has a retention date and a purchase price.
Stacy,
Yep.
if you don't ever change it to closed, does it retain it forever if it remains active?
Either way, it will retain it forever.
Oh. I
So
thought
go ahead.
there was
Oh,
a limited amount of time for retention.
you're right. The retention of, is it 5 or 7? I always forget which one's agent, which one's broker. 5
I'm
years?
not sure.
7 years? Well, it said 2027, so it's 7 years. If you close it, it will retain it for 7 years. As far as I know, active ones will never disappear from your dashboard.
Okay.
So I close that transaction. If I ever want to go back and see my closed transactions, I can just change what I'm viewing and click apply, and it'll take me to those closed transactions. So these do not disappear. They will retain for that required 7 years. And then if you want to keep them longer because you just can't part with them, you can always export your files before it gets rid of them. Any questions on the filters or closing files? That's kind of the last piece I had for you. I was going to see if there was any questions that I maybe didn't go over, or comments if you have things to share with other people that are on the call that would be helpful. Nikki, you got anything to add?
Not at this time. I know that there's been some questions about dashboard and how to use that summary page, but we've already been on for a little bit over an hour at this point in time. And so if anyone has any questions about that, feel free to reach out to us. We can go over that with you individually.
Sure. So she's talking about, I clicked over from transactions to dashboard, these sections here. It just requires, if you want to track here, it's not going to pull from the MLS. It requires you to be so thorough in your filling out of your transactions on the summary screen when you're in an individual transaction. If you get to the bottom, it'll ask about commission and all of that. And it will track here if you filled it out in your individual transactions. Like Nikki said, for time's sake, ask us individually. We can work with you on your individual account. We'd be happy to help if that's something that's important to you.
Yeah.
Good point. Anybody else?
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Stacy.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Learned a lot. Thank you very much.
you're
Thank
welcome. Good to see
Thank you.
Thanks a bunch.